Hello. I'm Roy Kaiser. I'm Artistic Director of Nevada Ballet Theater, and I'm really happy to welcome all of you here tonight to Insights. We're going to try and give you a little insight into the program that you're about to see. Excited to see the ballet tonight? Yeah? Good. Have you seen anything this season that you like at all? Yeah? Good. Hopefully we're going to extend that tonight. We've been marketing this program as the Firebird, and you will see the Firebird. Wonderful production created by Yuri Pashkov, who is not only a highly regarded and very talented choreographer. He choreographs all over the world. He is the resident choreographer at San Francisco Ballet. And we're very fortunate to be adding this ballet to our rep. But in addition to that, there's a whole evening of ballet. We will be opening the program with George Balanchine's Raymonda Variations. 4 premieres, by the way. 3 premieres for the 3 company premieres and 1 world premiere. We open with George Balanchine's Raymonda Variations. Second on the program, after a brief pause, is Light Rain. The Pas de Deux from Light Rain, which is a ballet created by Gerald Arpino back in 1981, back in the heyday of the Joffrey Ballet. I'm not even going to try and describe it to you. Watch it, and then applaud like crazy. It's great. It's great, 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 great. Tonight we will have Stephen Goforth and... Are you related? Are you related to Stephen? Your grandma? And mom. We're going to see him kind of naked tonight. Are you okay with that? I mean, I guess you've seen him naked before, but probably not for a long time, right? Yeah? Okay. He'll be dancing with Jamie DeRocker, and they're just beautiful, beautiful in this piece. And then, after an intermission, we have a world premiere created by another very renowned choreographer, Nicolo Fonte. And I couldn't be more pleased with how this project and the piece has turned out. So we want to talk a little bit about the program. And I have some friends here to help me do that. I'm not going to take up all 3 of these chairs. So first I'm going to call up Nicolo. Where's Nicolo? He just got here. Come on up. He can't believe the traffic. You're first up, so you get to pick whatever side you want to sit on. Okay. Nicolo is resident choreographer of Ballet West and Oregon Ballet Theater. One company does not seem to be enough for him. And then in addition to that, he creates works around the world. He just had a premiere, was it last week in Vail with Ballet X? 1 week ago, yeah. So very, very busy man. He actually, because of his schedule, the piece that you will see tonight, it's titled Craning. Nicolo will talk a little bit about that. We created it in December while we were performing the Nutcracker, because that was all that worked in this man's schedule, right? But it actually turned out to be a really good time for creation around Nutcracker. Anyway, Nicolo is, have a seat, relax. We're really glad to have him here. And then I have another guest that some of you in the audience might know. We're very, very fortunate to have conducting our orchestra, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Donato Cabrera. Do you know him? Yeah? Come on up. That's him. Shorter haircut. Yes. Come on up.
Hi, everyone.
So you all know Donato from the Las Vegas Philharmonic, of course. I mean, just such a talented, accomplished conductor.
These are comfy chairs, I'll have you know.
Yeah, good. Enjoy it. Because you're going to be standing for 2 hours. Soon. I looked at this program. This program is not only choreographically rich, but musically It's very diverse and a very, very rich program. And I asked this gentleman, I called him up and asked him if he would consider conducting in our orchestra pit, conducting our orchestra, not knowing, really not, I usually like to know the answer before I ask a question. I had no idea what you would say. And I think you thought about it for about 3 seconds.
Maybe 3 seconds.
Maybe. And he said yes. So we've been having a great time with Donato in the studio, with the dancers, working very closely with Nicolo here on the new work that was created. And we had a dress rehearsal last night. The orchestra sounds great. The company is dancing incredibly well. And I think you're in for a real treat. It's my turn to sit. I'm going to sit.
Be careful.
There we go. They are...
I know.
Oh, they roll.
Slid back into the
Yeah, okay. We're on. So anyway, we're just going to have a little discussion, and we'll open it up to questions at the end of our time here, so we can get over to the theater. I'm going to start with you, Maestro.
Again, ask your questions.
Could you talk a little bit about I've always had great respect for conductors that choose to conduct for dance, because I think it's very, very specialized. It's certainly, I think, not being a conductor, I think it's very different. It certainly is a very different experience than conducting a symphony orchestra. Can you speak to that a little bit?
What we talked about briefly last night at the end of the rehearsal about the idea of music emanating from the breath. I believe that all art form is a gesture of beginning from the breath. We all begin our movement making music, making dance, singing, playing an instrument from the breath. And before my time here, I was with the San Francisco Opera for 3 years as a resident conductor there, and then I've worked at Lyric Opera and the Metropolitan and so forth throughout the years. And opera is very close to my heart, and being in the theater, being in the world of the theater with the costumes off stage and just that life of rehearsing for hours and hours, for weeks on minutia, I love that process. And when you said last night that you also felt that dance, you as a dancer and as a teacher, choreographer, you also believe that it's about the breath. So when I am conducting ballet or watching a rehearsal, when I see a gesture, I see a breath. And so I love connecting what's happening on stage in that context to what's happening in the pit. And for me, it's a never-ending challenge because it's a truly living, breathing art form. In the symphonic world, it's almost the other end of the spectrum because you have this intense period of rehearsal, and then you have a concert or a series of concerts, and it's a matter of achieving excellence in this very beautiful little window of time where incredible things can happen under this intense pressure, literally days, and only 4 rehearsals of 2.5 hours of length, and then we have the concert. Whereas, whether it's dance or opera, there must be a long process, especially when we're premiering a piece, of exploration, of development, character development, learning it through in getting it inside the body. And I try, when I come in as the conductor, first of all, I love being involved with the rehearsal process long before I start rehearsing with the orchestra, because I feel that I can transmit to the best of my abilities what has been happening in the rehearsals, the dance rehearsals, to the orchestra in that way if I'm engaged. So for the last 2 weeks, I've been in the afternoons up at the ballet studio, really truly enjoying this lovely longer process.
I thank you for that. Yeah, and we're calling it breath. Maybe we should come up with a more eloquent term. I don't know, but that I really do think that that's it, and I think that that's what makes a conductor successful with dance. And probably opera, I'm sure, is the same way, because there is an interaction between the artists on the stage and what you are bringing out of the musicians in the orchestra pit.
I think ballet and opera share this, the idea of collaboration. When I'm conducting an orchestra, really the buck stops with me in so many ways. But when I'm in the pit, whether it be for opera or dance, I'm collaborating with you, I'm collaborating with the choreographer, I'm collaborating with the lighting, I'm collaborating with the stage manager. All of these are equal cogs that if one isn't working properly, something will go awry and it will affect everything.
Right.
And it's important to have that knowledge of collaboration, that respect of the collaboration.
Right. What is the biggest challenge we threw at you over the last couple of weeks? Besides
Biggest
not having
challenge.
lights in the orchestra pit last night.
Actually, I enjoy what I maybe I'm a masochist, but I actually enjoy when things sort of go off kilter. I know that sounds odd for those of you, especially that love control. I do love control too, but I also enjoy the fact that something might not be what it is the day before, because that's when we all have to step up and the adrenaline kicks in, and that's when we often have to make our most inspired choices. And so for me, what is the most challenging? I think a challenge for live music making is you, by the very nature of needing to rehearse for hours and hours and weeks in advance, you must use a taped. Must use a performance on tape for the rehearsal process. And so it's very easy for dancers and for singers to expect that that's exactly what they will hear when the orchestra is in the pit, and exactly the same way. And of course, a recording never can capture the 3D sound that an orchestra creates. And so I'm sure, although I'm not on stage, I'm in the pit, I know that it sounds entirely, by its very nature, it will sound entirely different. Sure. And so making sure that transition, Nicolo and we had a lovely meeting about that this afternoon, of making sure that transition, while it must happen, that the dancers will hear something different, that we make it as smooth for them and for the orchestra as possible.
Right, right. That also just reminds me of a mantra that I've carried throughout my career as a director, in the importance of live music for dance, because it adds a whole different level of intensity to the performance for just the reason you just described. As dancers perform to recorded music for too long a period of time, it's predictable. They know exactly what's coming next. They don't know, if you're going to take a breath here or slight variations that may appear throughout a performance. So they have to be really on top of it musically.
Exactly.
It's a whole different level of focus, and I think it improves the quality of the performance 100%.
In the case of the Glazunov, the first piece on the program, you'll hear solo numbers. You'll hear a pas de deux. You'll see a pas de deux on stage, but what you will be hearing and seeing is a pas de trois, because Deanne Letourneau, our concertmaster, that movement is practically a violin concerto, and it's incredibly virtuosic. And there's no way Deanne could nor should copy what was on the recording, because it's such an individual expression that Glazunov wanted for the violin. And so that trio that's happening on stage and in the pit is a wonderful thing that can only happen in live music. And the dancers responding and working with Deanne.
Agreed.
It's a beautiful
Agreed.
moment.
She played that beautifully last night, by the way.
She did.
Yeah. Looking forward to hearing it again. Sir.
Yes.
Hold that up by your, there you go. Say hello to Las Vegas.
Hello, Las Vegas.
Yeah. As I said when we were beginning, Nicolo is actually a choreographer that I've admired for many, many years. I've admired his work. I really hate saying this in public because his head's just going to explode
Impossibly
over here.
large, yes.
Impossibly large. I mean, so many things about his work that I have that has drawn me to his work over the years. A really acute sense of musicality. In every work that he does, he has a very distinct vocabulary that he works from, and it's different in many different pieces, but he establishes kind of a point of view in a piece and sees it through to the end, which is not always the case with choreographers. They can kind of throw everything but the kitchen sink into a piece. Nicolo is just very clear about the direction he wants to take it, and probably the last thing that I really like about Nicolo is his working style. He's very collaborative with the dancers. The work that you'll see tonight has 10 dancers from the company performing the piece, and I think, I won't speak for you, but I think it's safe to say that all 10 of those dancers had some impact in how the piece turned out. It's just a very collaborative process, and not all, and I'm saying that as a compliment to you because not all choreographers are that way. Many choreographers come in and they know what they want, you know, in this phrase of 8 and what they want in that phrase of 8, and there's not a whole lot of involvement of the artists other than they carry that out and they do it. And I feel, especially for a company like Nevada Ballet Theater, which has such a diverse group of artists. I mean, everybody in the company, they all have incredible strong suits that you have found and you have showcased, I think. So, did I build you up enough there?
Maybe,
Okay.
yeah. I
No,
don't know if I need
Anyway,
it, actually.
I am so happy to, in my former incarnation as director of Pennsylvania Ballet, was never able to get Nicolo to the company to create an original work. So I'm really pleased that I was able to get you here in my first season. And I think I'll let him talk a little bit about the piece. I'll just tell you that I think it's spectacular.
Oh, thank you.
Tell them about your piece.
I will. So, yeah, it's a piece that's primarily inspired by this fabulous music that Donato will conduct tonight, called Crane, actually. And so the ballet is called Craning, by an Irish composer, Donagh Dennehy. Did I pronounce that correctly?
The wee lad, Donagh Dennehy, the Irish, yes, very close. He's Irish. How do you pronounce those names? I don't know.
Yeah, I went like live on YouTube saying Donacha, and then I was like, oh no, I think that's wrong. Anyway, the piece is largely inspired by that piece of music, so it's kind of abstract, but I can tell you a funny story about it. So the history of the work is that Donagh was commissioned to write a score for a kind of orchestral and choreographed ballet, so to speak, for actual cranes in Dublin. So there was a huge sort of architecture boom in Dublin, and then there were cranes all over the city, so they were commissioning him to do this music. And then that actually never took place. And so he just continued writing the score, and sort of, in his own words, it sort of became bigger and more far-reaching than he had ever imagined. So when I heard it, and I read the title and I heard the score, I thought, oh, this has to do with the birds' cranes. It's so bird-like. So somehow, in my crazy imagination, I kind of combined the two, sort of the machinery and the birds' cranes, and came up with this sort of amalgam, what you'll see tonight. So in a word or two, the piece is about like the possibility of flying up into the sky and having that bird's eye view on civilization, and then perhaps discovering all the beauty that actually exists below, and that, you know, even going further with that theme, that, you know, we can penetrate into our own hearts and souls and discover that there is real true beauty and connection that is truly possible. So ultimately, those are the bigger themes of the ballet itself. But also, I don't consider myself a philosopher in any way, shape, or form. I'm a choreographer, so I have to also make something that's wildly entertaining. If I'm going to ask you to pay attention to my work for 25 minutes, I think my job is to make a really great, strong, dynamic, exciting, thrilling, touching ballet. And I have to do that every single time I attempt to make a ballet and ask for your attention. So I take that very seriously. And it's just been so wonderful being here with Nevada Ballet Theater. I'll touch a little bit on what Roy said about the collaborative spirit of the company. Once I got the cast together, I chose the 10 dancers because I knew I wanted to work with 10, five men, 5 women. It kind of just rolled off of me. The piece was done in like 2.5 weeks or less, and it was kind of like, oh, there it is, and I think it's quite good. It's kind of a tricky score, you know, some parts of it are not really countable. You just kind of have to hear it and you have to feel each other. And I just remember going into your office a number of times saying, it's all coming together so quickly, like I don't have to count anything, I don't have to do anything. I'm just kind of like sitting back and letting it happen. So, you know, I am one of those choreographers. I don't ask dancers to actually generate movement for me. I can come up with the movement, but I do like that collaborative spirit in the room where they're either with words or with some kind of movement metaphor that they're contributing to the creative process, and that then they really take ownership of it, and I think that's the key. When they feel like they take ownership of it, then the potential for magic on stage is really there, and I think it's quite magical. So,
I'm going to agree with you. I think it's quite magical. Yeah, very happy to have it added to the rep. So they are giving me the, I'm getting this from the back of the room, which means we have a little bit more time left, maybe about 5 minutes. One of us has to work tonight. One of us has to go conduct. We're just going to watch.
We were going to sit back and watch.
Hanging out. But anyway, I'd like to open it up. If there are any questions, we'd be happy for anybody sitting up here. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, most. The question was, sorry, I'll repeat the question. Would I consider putting Stravinsky's Firebird on a program for the Philharmonic? Most certainly. It's his most accessible and probably his most popular ballet score that's performed by orchestras. Tonight is a 1946 suite, which is about 30 minutes of music, as opposed to what an orchestra normally plays, the famous suite, which is about 20 minutes long. So tonight you'll actually be able to hear more music than you would have if you were to see it in its symphonic form, which is very special.
Yes, ma'am, way in the back.
So the question is basically, what's my choreographic process? It changes from time to time. In particular, in this case, because I didn't know the company, I sort of arrived the day I started choreographing. So I kind of workshopped a bit with the entire company until the sort of audition process was over and I finalized the casting. Usually it starts with music. I consider myself a pretty musical choreographer. And so sometimes I'll just hear a piece of music and I'll want to choreograph to it, and then I'll sort of try to devise and find what's, you know, trying to be chiseled out of that music in terms of ideas for me. Or sometimes it's the other way around. I have a very specific idea or a very specific commission that I've agreed to do, and then I have to find music that will accomplish and fulfill the needs of that idea. But usually, I would say 85% to 90% of the time, it's music first. Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
There was a marked difference in nuance with the dancers when you came. I would like to ask Nicolo how that nuance translates in comparison to other companies that you've worked with across the country.
So.
Tendency to a greater nuance.
Mm-hmm. So she's, I'll just repeat what you said so everyone can hear you, that there's been a greater nuance in the dancers since Roy has taken over the company, and that how did I find that, and how does that translate in comparison with other companies? I had, a great time here, and I found the dancers to be utterly versatile and really, truly collaborative and professional, and they have a lot of abilities, different kinds of abilities that I had to discover in the process. So that was a really interesting thing to discover, that I thought it was going to be one thing, and then I was like, oh no, it's going to be this, and it's going to be somebody else doing that. So there's a lot of range in the company that I think that makes it very, very dynamic. So it's just a wonderful place to work. Yeah.
The only thing I'll add to that is that, and this goes back to before I even arrived, the company here, the dancers are really hungry. They're like sponges, and anything that you put out there for them, they just want to absorb it, and they learn from it, and it makes them better. And I think that certainly plays a role in the creation of a new work, but it also is part of the culture at the company. It's the way that they take class every morning and the way they approach rehearsals even for existing works. So that's just so healthy. And I don't know how that even got there, but I'm doing everything I can do to hang on to it with them. Yeah. So did we say something that made those kids angry? Did they?
Mass exodus
They
of
just
the
all
children.
got up and left, and you were speaking. I'm just saying. Anyway, one more question before we go, or are we good? Yeah? Okay. I hope you all really enjoy the program tonight.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for being
Thank you.
here.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.